The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hi, welcome to the Ring and All of the Sports. Tonight, I have two special guests from the Bell Time Club, Dante Luna and Beau Douglas. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to get right into it, okay?
Absolutely.
Dante, where'd you grow up?
Rosendale, Massachusetts.
Okay, how about you, Beau?
Somerville, Mass.
Okay. When did you first see pro wrestling?
Oh, man. It would have to be Video Smith. Video Smith used to have free movie rentals on Wednesdays, for sports movie rentals on Wednesdays, and wrestling was a part of that category. So every Wednesday, you would see the wrestling movies. You would see the Royal Rumble and Survivor Series and WrestleManias on cassette, and it was just like I wanted those movies. My dad would rent his action movies, and I'd be like, I kind of want that one. And then the lady was just like, on Wednesday, those videos are free. So that's supposed my first introduction to really watching wrestling, because my mom wouldn't let me watch it on TV. So those cassettes, my dad would rent me at Video Smith on Wednesdays.
Video Smith, yeah. Like it's funny because I remember the video stores that we had too. Palmer and Blockbuster did. One of the nights a week they were free too.
Yeah.
That's how I saw almost every pay-per-view, because they weren't paying $50 a pay-per-view.
Right.
But no, for me, I'd say my first wrestling experience. I was 7 years old. I had watched it obviously a little bit before, but I was 7 years old, and one of my buddies got tickets to the Garden. Yeah, for wrestling. And I was like, it wasn't like I was like a super fan when it first happened. Obviously, I was just watching it, and still watching all the cartoons and everything. Maybe. And we just went, and so I went with him with his tickets, and I fell in love instantly. The live event.
Nice.
Yeah, back in 86, 87.
I didn't see it live until I was like way older. I must have been like 18. I was already 18 when I seen it live. Yeah, and The Undertaker came out that night, and I was just like, the thing is, at that point, I was bouncing around seat to seat. So I was getting closer and closer. By the time I got to the end of the night, Undertaker came out as a surprise. So by that point, I was already ringside, like closer to the floor. And so like it was amazing seeing it from the bleachers. Like you could feel the space. I don't remember. I think it was definitely a Raw. So I started off in the bleachers. I made my way down to the floor, and as the show went on, you know, that was pretty cool.
Good old guy.
But I was already grown up. I'd never seen it as a kid live.
Right.
The closest thing I got to seeing it live was the City Hall with Mike Tyson and Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold.
I remember that.
We got close, but I couldn't even see.
Right.
So I felt it, but I didn't see nothing.
Yeah, that place. I remember seeing pictures and stuff. That place
Packed.
packed. Were you there too?
Course.
Yeah? Nice.
And then at the Galleria when they did Stone Cold and what was it over Cambridgeside Galleria, and they threw
the Rock
into the water in front. That you're not allowed to go into anyways. It's the dirty harbor,
right.
But it's okay. Everyone was able to go in there that night. They packed Boston all the time.
All the time. All right, now, were your friends or family into it too? You said your mom obviously, like my mom, hated it, man. She hated that I watched.
Well, my mom hated that it was on so late, you know.
Right.
But all the cooler stuff was on even later. Like ECW was on late at night, so you really had to stay up for it.
Yeah.
Other family, I found out about family, or my great-grandfather. I found out about him being a wrestling fan way later in life, that he used to travel around Puerto Rico just to go see wrestling shows. But the only other person that was really into it, other than my cousin JD, was my big cousin Jesse.
Yeah.
Jesse came from Puerto Rico, and you know, my grandfather helped. Well, his mother is my grandfather's sister, and they had just moved to Boston, and we was trying to find a way to connect. And you know, he had just come from Puerto Rico, and I mentioned I love wrestling, and he gave me the people's eyebrow. He's just like wrestling, and so we connected right away. And so he's like a wrestling historian. So I don't even try to test him.
Right.
That's how you get your info.
yeah.
You gotta hit him up, just.
Yeah, Jesse. So Jesse was like the go-to person. He made wrestling. He made it okay for me to like wrestling because he was a grown person. I like wrestling. I'm like,
Right.
all right, okay, yeah, I love wrestling.
Nice.
That whole
That was
stigma.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or are you both friends?
Oh, my friends. Some of my friends liked it. Some of them hated it, obviously. But when I was little, I found out. Obviously, my grandmother liked wrestling. I guess her father was obsessed with wrestling. So my great grandfather, which I had no clue about. I found out later in years too that I had an uncle that was a wrestler.
Oh wow.
No, I'm not. Sorry. So it's actually a grandfather, which I wasn't involved with. Different part of, like, separated family, whatever.
Right.
And he had wrestled way back, back in Walter's days, Kowalski's days as well. But I mean, doing more so like the East Coast,
Right.
northern East Coast. Where else? So my father, he liked wrestling. Enough. He watched it at the Garden every week. He always talked about how he used to go to the Garden and his obsession with Haystacks Calhoun and Kowalski. And
Haystacks too as a kid.
yeah, so it was really accepted, obviously, in the household. So when I started liking it, they were like, okay, all right,
Nice.
see what you can do.
Right. Well, the next question was, when did you go to your first show live? You said you were 18.
Yeah, that
And
was
you were 7. Wow. Very young. That's exactly when I started liking wrestling. I found it by myself, changing the channel when I was 7 years old. All right. This one's for you first. How did you get involved with the Bell Time Club, which was established in 2010, correct?
Yep. Actually, February's the 10th anniversary. Jason Rumble was talking to me about it the other day, and I didn't even realize it was already that point. Yeah,
That's
February.
the universe.
And you and Jay started.
So I was with Jay at the beginning of it. Jay Rumble, Sam Amato Makua,
Okay, yeah.
and Ken Kelly, the guy who runs the Superheroes of Wrestling show that I help
And
out
he used
with.
to put the shows on at the Rec
Ringside.
Center too, right? Yeah, I still love those shows.
They started it up fully.
Okay.
I had branched off after that. I had left a little while from just NWA, New England at the time, and right when it became VCW. But then I came back. Then they moved out of Everett, moved to Woburn. When they moved to Woburn, I became a little bit more involved again. And then as soon as they got to Wakefield, I completely dove right in, and Jay had me training all the classes fully. About a year or two after that, Jason was going to give up the school. They had a nice crop of guys who had actually invested a lot of time and effort. And me, I was already there for 2 or 3 years helping out. So I was like, I saw so much in these guys. So I was like, Jay, I'll just keep it going. I'll take it over. Go ahead and hopped on board. And then Pat Dillon came on board and was helping out for quite a while, still helping out with the guys, getting them some work as well. And I mean, obviously, leading us to our shows. And
Nice.
Yeah. Keeping it going.
How did you get involved?
Pure instinct. I was filming a music video for hip hop artists in Boston, and we were editing, and we've been editing this project for a while. So he said, we was gonna take a break, but at this point we really want to get it done. And his brother did sound for NECW. He did the sound. It was Gene. So Gene Carlos, he is Grizzly's brother. I know his name is Anthony. I know him as Grizzly. So he was like, "Yo, Dante, I know you love wrestling. You gotta come check this out. It's a indie show. It's a smaller show. It's just not it's not WWE. I'm like, yo, I know what an indie show is. I'm like, I gotta go see this.
Right.
I gotta go check it out. I've never been to an indie show, but I've always seen it with huge lights, big stage. I've never been to a house show. Like at that point, I've just went to a house show a couple years ago for the first time, and I love that interaction with the audience. But I walked into NECW. The first person I met was Beau Douglas. I saw a lot of people that I'm still friends with to this day. Right. Just breaking down the ring, building up the ring, loading in, setting things up, setting up chairs. And at that point, I was just becoming familiar with the wrestling culture. because it was just a shock thing to me because I've never seen that type of production put together. So naturally, the natural story lover in me. I love telling stories. I love watching and being a part of stories and just productions, period. So I just had to take a step back and just absorb everything. And Beau Douglas, he was just the first person I met when I walked through the doors, and I kept seeing his face at everything else I was going to, and seeing his same team of people, staff these events, or at least, set up the ring, break it down. And then Beau was introducing me to everybody.
Right.
So I stayed good friends with Beau. And then, I got the attention of El Mundo newspaper for an annual event they do at Fenway Park.
Right.
Through my documentary works, through like my Comic-Con stuff. So they brought me in to spice up their event to see if I can help them bring some more entertainment. And my first instinct was to invite cosplayers. And over 100 showed up, and Beau was actually Jason Voorhees
Really?
that year. So
Nice.
Beau came as Jason, Tim Lennox came as Michael Myers.
Yeah.
So those two are my horror characters. I love horror. So he was a part of that first idea.
Right.
And then, El Mundo newspaper, Mundo Boston, they were like, Dante, this was a really great idea. What else you have up your sleeve?
Right.
And I said, I want to do a wrestling show. Where I didn't hesitate. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know who I was going to call, how I was going to pull it off.
Right.
But I knew that a wrestling show concept could work here. And then when they said, let's do it, I'm like, all right, now I got to make phone calls. And the first person I called was Beau.
Right.
And I'm just like, is this possible? It's like, Dante, you got to repeat what you just said. He was just like, Beau, I can get us Fenway Park. He's like, Dante, there hasn't been a wrestling show at Fenway Park since 1969. This is not going to happen. He's like, would you? I'm just like, dude, there's a lot of red tape, but, we'll figure it out. But I'm pretty sure we can get a show inside Fenway Park. And, we jumped through a lot of hoops, if it wasn't for, I think, Julio at he works for the Red Sox. He's also a wrestling fan. He's also a good friend of mine. He really pushed it forward and made sure wrestling was something that happened that at that event that year in that moment, and that's all we really cared about. Right. We really thought it was only going to happen once, so we planned and prepared for it like it was only going to happen once. And that was it. And I decided to invest in Beau, and invest in this Belltime Club concept because I loved what he represented. I appreciate and respect his work ethic. I have such reverence for what he does. That I don't think I was qualified to create a wrestling company yet. So it's just like, the only thing I can do is enhance what he's been working on and make it a Dante Luna and Belltime Club thing. And that's what it was for the first couple of years. Right. Until I realized that I'm Belltime too. Yeah. So it's just like, from like moving forward, the Melden show was the last time I think we really pushed Belltime Club and Dante Luna. Right. This next show is just Belltime Club. So it's just like, I put, a lot of my energy and invest a lot of my my time and my love into my love for wrestling and storytelling into wrestling, but into the Belltime Club. So nice. It's just pure instinct, It was Beau doing what he has been doing for the last, couple of decades, with, meeting people and, building relationships because, I needed a stamp of approval to do a wrestling show, and Beau is a stamp. Right.
Nice. Now, you were just talking about the show in February, that right? February vacation. Place was packed. And leads me to this question. You had a Mighty Morphin Power Ranger, Austin St. John there. And you don't have to tell your secrets, but was it hard to get him to come to the show?
Oh, we just called Hollywood.
Called the pipeline.
Austin St. John is a good relationship. He's a good friend of mine. I met him just doing my Comic-Con work, just working on, crazy ideas. And I got I've always worked on pop culture interviews. Even when I was 19, it was easier for me when I was younger because less people were doing interviews.
Right.
So it was easier to get in touch with somebody who heard the idea that I was working on a TV concept. So I had a television show in Boston, closed on local access in Boston, Boston Neighborhood Network.
Oh, wow.
Um,
I did not know that.
yeah. So I won an award when I was 22, a Producer of the Year award when I was there. But I knew that for me, I felt limited by weekly television. I love the idea of on-demand television, on-demand media, being able to have a conversation with you
Right.
and find that file, find that footage or content immediately. So I started focusing more on YouTube. YouTube became a big focus. So my Comic-Con stuff was something that I do. Sometimes you can't tell what I make money on and what I do creatively. So the Power Rangers I have to ask myself all the time, how did I get this all the time? It was just I love the Power Rangers. So I started off, I just wanted to interview him, Austin St. John. He was just getting back to the Comic-Con circuit. And that one video project took me on the road for like the next 2 years. Like, next thing I know, I'm in Lexington, Kentucky, filming with him. Next time I'm in Ohio and Houston and Washington, D.C. and Philly and Los Angeles and Queens. And I never asked him for anything. Right. So he literally, he follows me. He saw what we were working on, and we had a conversation, and I'm just like, don't play with me. Like, I would love to include you what we're working on because, it'd mean a lot. Not only would it mean a lot to me, but I think it'd mean a lot to the culture and a lot to the business. And it was just, I had a good talk with Mike McCarthy last year before Fenway. Before I was thinking of involving Richard Hatch, in last year's Fenway show. It was the first time I was really investing or considering a serious pop culture person to be a part of the show. The first winner of Survivor, I was just happened to be a fan of Survivor, and Mike was just like, Dante, it's a great decision because it just gets more eyes on our business.
Right.
And that one conversation is what really made me pull the trigger and say, you know what, let me call Richard back up. And he was somebody else I met on the Comic-Con circuit who I've never asked for any favors, or never asked for anything. So it's just a matter of going back to old crossroads, other places I've been to in life, and just seeing where we're at. But Austin St. John is a relationship that is, to this day, I have to pinch myself because I ran home from school in first grade, to watch the Rangers, and those will probably always be my most special interviews. Like my Power Ranger stuff. I've interviewed almost every original cast member: Rita, Zordon, Goldar, Bulk and Skull, Alpha. The Power Rangers have always been something special to me. So I've Rita Repulsa tattooed right here. That's Mighty Morphin for life.
Nice. And he was great too at the end with his little going at it back and forth with Benny.
Yeah, that was pretty
That
cool.
was really, really
pretty
cool. All right. Well, at the Bell Time Club, Beau, you have like the head trainer.
Yes, I have.
And you also have Benny.
I have Benny. Yeah. Benny does a lot with the students. He does a lot. Everyone comes through. We have Big Bear there helping out all the time.
Right.
I think I told you before, I like to treat the school, obviously we have the format, we like to teach the old ways, we like to teach the traditional ways, but there's so many different aspects of wrestling now that after your foundation's built, that you have to expand on it, and that's something that Benny is really good at.
Yeah.
But I like having a lot of the older guys who are experienced, not even just the older guys. You got Dan Terry who comes down here and there.
Right. He's been in 5-6 years?
Yeah, 6 years now, I think 6 or 7 he's coming up on. He's doing some decent stuff for himself. Right. He comes down and he'll help the class sometimes, just depending on the day of the week. Bam Shaw's come down and helped out. A lot of the guys, Danny Miles. I like to anyone that I obviously know is safe, and I enjoy their performance as well.
Right.
I like to have their input as well. I
Yeah.
mean, but we do stick to the original Kowalski ideals, the right way, the safe way, and that's something we always go back to.
Nice.
So.
And now is Paul Richard involved down there too with you?
Paul Richard retired from wrestling,
Yeah.
as you may have
completely
heard.
retired. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
he pops in, he talks to the guys, helps the guys out a little
Nice.
bit, but he completely has distanced himself a bit from wrestling. But I talk to him weekly still.
Right.
So
Right.
I mean,
Great guy. Great guy. All right. So let's on Wednesday, now Tuesday, tomorrow night, you have the laced experience with Smalls from the Sandlot. You want to let these guys know exactly what's going on
So
tomorrow night?
Smalls actually gets into Boston a few hours from now.
yeah.
So I'm gonna pick him up in a little bit. So tomorrow at Laced, Boston. Laced is urban apparel boutique. It's a high-end urban apparel store, but there's more than they're Laced Boston are culture folks. I mean, they're important people in the scene. They help define Boston on a global scale.
Nice.
So there's going to be a meet and greet there from 4 to 6, and then after we're doing a screening of The Sandlot with Smalls at the Lena Park and on American Legion in Dorchester. And it's the first time we'll be working with that venue, that facility. I mean, they have great people there at the Lena Park. So it's the beginning of a work relationship with them. So we'll see how that goes.
Nice. Now you've interviewed him and some of the other guys before, right? From the
Yeah,
Sandlot
man,
movie?
The
'Cause
Sandlot.
I love that
The
movie,
Sandlot, I
man.
feel amazing about because that's my Dominican side. Cause I grew up playing baseball.
Right.
I love baseball so much, and so my baseball movies, where it's just like my love for movie, love for baseball, cross paths. Like my favorite movie is The Sandlot, and John Goodman's Babe Ruth. I
Yep.
love that movie so
That is a
much.
good movie.
Such
I
a
can
good
watch that
movie.
movie any time of day. So The Sandlot was really special to me. So I think it was just one day me reaching out, like just making a list of the cast members, and it was just I play around my bucket list a lot. I add new stuff all the time because I'm
Right.
always knocking stuff off my
Yep.
bucket list. Oh, I was adding new stuff to my bucket list, and The Sandlot was one of those things. I just wanted to meet one of the cast members. I would have been satisfied with just meeting one. And then I heard back from Yeah. I saw Yeah some of my work, and he was just like, "Dude, this is awesome." And I'm just like, yeah. So what's up, man? Like, I would love to get started on something. And he's like, yo, in a couple weeks, it's gonna be me, Squints, Timmy, Tommy. I'm like, oh my God. And De Nunez, I'm just like, okay, so I'll meet you there. It was over in DC. So I got to meet a big chunk of the team
Right.
all at once. So I
awesome.
interviewed them as a cast and just left an impression on them, and just stayed in touch with them. I stayed in touch with Chauncey and Shane. Shane, that's who I talk to the most. But Marty's a good friend. Marty's one that brought me in. And then that interview got the attention of the director and creator of The Sandlot. And he was just like, Dante, the 25th anniversary is going to be on the field. You got to go check it out. I'm just like, what? It's like, so yeah, they're rebuilding the field. I would love to have you go document it, go check it out. And, just if you can, go, man, listen. And I had Boston Comic Con that weekend, and I never miss Boston Comic Con.
Right.
I love Boston Comic Con because that's another show that I have full access to and I create content for. So it's just like I turned down a whole convention so that I can go to the Sandlot
Right.
and work on something with a reunion with the cast minus Benny, because Benny wasn't doing any he wasn't doing any promo work for the 25th anniversary. I think he will eventually, but that's
Right.
his it's just his decision. But most of the cast members there, the director wasn't there, but that's where I got to meet everybody else. So I met Smalls, Tommy. He's a really good dude. I mean, they all are.
Right.
They're all just a little bit older than me. So it was fun to be able to get to see them. They have great chemistry. And I knew I wanted to involve the Sandlot in one way or another because we have a baseball foundation in terms of the show with Beau. As far as putting our first show together at Fenway Park, I just thought the baseball concept, works for us. I'm trying to create a pop culture experience for a wrestling audience, and vice versa. You know,
Nice.
I'm trying to show pop culture people some wrestling, so people who wouldn't normally come to a wrestling show will have the chance to see it for the first time. Because most of the people that have come to the shows that I've been a part of are seeing it for the first time, and those are my expectations every time I work on a show. Like, I expect everyone in there to be somebody new.
Yeah.
And then I'd be thrilled to have people come more than once.
Right.
But there's a lot of people in Boston, a lot of people who haven't seen wrestling yet. I just plan on exposing it to a lot
They
of
will.
people.
They will.
Oh yeah. Now, did you have a hand at all in like with the WWE night? Do you think that like
At Fenway?
Everything, it was a domino effect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
So a domino effect. Julio was the one who put together WWE night.
Right.
So Julio was somebody that has been pushing to have wrestling at Fenway Park. Our show was a great example. It helped open the conversation for more wrestling at Fenway Park.
Right.
So WWE night came after us doing shows at Fenway, so it made it easier for him to put it together.
Right.
And he made it work. So it's
Yeah, they did
it's
awesome.
really
They did really well that night.
it's
too.
really man, Julio, I have to thank him. You know, so that's his baby.
Right.
WWE night was his baby. That's his. So
I mean,
what he wanted to do.
everyone at Fenway, honestly, they're a great crew. I mean,
Yeah.
Beth, you got Beth, you got Julio, you got Lewis. They've done
yeah.
a lot. They've come to shows
Jay.
too,
Right.
and yeah, Jay.
Yeah, that was really cool too because it was Kofi.
Yeah,
That ended up, and now he's the world champ. So
Yep,
I wonder who they're gonna bring in this year. Maybe he'll be a world champ. Also, Wednesday, you guys got a show at the Malden Irish American Club at 177 West Street, Malden, Mass. Excuse me. Sorry. Show starts at 7. Are you doing a pre-show now? Why don't you tell us a little bit
the
about
pre-show is the pop culture experience.
that? Okay.
So the pre-show is a chance to have more time and space and a setting for you to that's more controlled in terms of exploring and asking questions and not feeling like you're waiting on showtime. You know, it's there's a time designated to talk to wrestlers, to meet guests, to talk to artists, you know, buy some art, experience music, you know. So music is another element. Music is an element that there's no way I was ever able to miss it. It never went over my head. You know, I know music is a big part of wrestling.
Right.
You know, so in my head, in my brainstorm, it was a part of my initial brainstorm is music.
Right.
You know, I'm always brainstorming music. So that will always be a part of the experience, you know, so people can come and experience, you know, wrestling culture, but also a little bit of pop culture. And I call it storytelling culture because it all involves, you know, telling stories. And I think that goes back to, you know, the earliest form of humankind, like we told stories. So it's just contemporary society, you know, packaged. You know, it's just music, movies, television, comics, wrestling, and in
Basically
one
everything
space.
you like.
Yeah.
Everything you like.
Right.
There's something for
With
everyone.
an amazing concession stand.
Oh yeah.
Now you got a title shot that night, you and
Oh,
Jay,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Against Big Bear and Bugsy Stone.
Yeah.
Big dudes.
Oh, yeah, big boys. Big boys.
Yeah, just-
Big boys.
You guys can win that match.
Yeah,
though.
yeah,
I
yeah.
expect you
They're
guys
still-
to be the tag champs at the
They're
end.
still both shorter than me. I don't care how big
Right?
they are. I mean, bigger they are, the harder they fall. What other cliche can I be? You got Jay and them, David and Goliath.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say. In your tag team partner, you've been great friends for how long?
22 years.
Wow.
22
So,
years. We know each other inside and out.
yeah, Big Bear and Bugsy, you might be in some big trouble.
Listen, it's going to be
That's
tough.
all me.
Listen,
You
it's
didn't say
tough.
it. I
Listen,
said it.
Careful.
Right?
Careful. But good luck.
It's going to be a great show.
It'll be great.
You got any other matches that you can announce? I know I don't have it written down, but
We get the main event. It's actually
three-way, right?
no, it's a tag match.
Oh, okay.
And it's based off the results of the last event and the main event with Mike McCarthy and
Yeah.
Slick Wagner Brown. They're actually going to be teaming up on this show against Demon Ortiz and Total Loco.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Total Loco.
That match is going to be incredible.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty hot match. Got some young upstarts, obviously. Got Shannon Thomas.
Yeah.
He's going to be working.
He's killing
out
it
with-
everywhere, huh?
Yeah,
Right now,
yeah.
He really is.
Another guy he's facing is actually D.L. Hurst.
Oh, okay.
Another one.
Another good
guy. I
young
think these
up-and-comer.
two right now, they're going to have. I think that match could steal the show.
Oh, absolutely.
I think the match could steal the show. I mean, we have
Absolutely.
another Test of Strength. That's Slick Wagner Brown's company.
Yep.
We have a title match for them on the show as well. You got Dan the Man versus Sully Banger versus Dan Terry again, who just really wants to win that Test of Strength championship. I mean, keeps on putting in for the matches, and I mean, you can't say no, right? I mean,
Belmont
yeah,
versus
women's
Edward.
championship match.
Widow, yeah. She's awesome.
She's amazing.
Alicia.
Belmont was
Yep,
one of the
Alicia
first.
Edwards.
Belmont and Alicia were two of the first women wrestlers I ever photographed on the indie scene.
Oh, really?
So that first couple nights of taking pictures, those two were the ones I focused the most on. So it's fun for me to see that come full circle.
Yeah.
And to work with both of them.
And both of them are fantastic workers.
And we do have another women's match as well. It's
Zana.
the Nakomatala versus Zana versus
Luscious Latasha.
Luscious Natasha. Yeah.
So the first one you named, I think I might have seen her at the New England All-Star shoot. What was her name again?
Nakoma.
Nakomatala. The
She's
Native
fairly
American.
new.
Alicia Andrews.
Oh, okay.
She was wrestling as Alicia Andrews as she was beginning. Got a
Okay.
showcase. I believe she's training over the XWA Kingdom School now.
Nice. Speaking of that, you guys, how happy were you to see a New England guy winning that Ring of Honor World title?
The whole weekend was New England.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
not talk
Wasn't
about
it awesome,
Come on,
though?
man. It was beautiful.
No
Beautiful,
doubt.
beautiful.
Guys, let's just
Matt
jump in.
Taven,
I only got like 5-6 fan questions. Let's get them out of the way. Good friend of mine of the show, Dan Bolia, wants to know, Bo, this is for you. Was using the last name Douglas inspired by the franchise Shane Douglas or something else? Or is that your shoot last name?
How about none of the above?
Okay.
The only comparison I could ever say with Shane Douglas was when I started, I had the same hair as him. We had the exact same bowl cut, blonde locks down to our chin. Yeah, so maybe we could have been brothers. No. Yeah, I went with that name because it rolled off the tongue. Beau Douglas. My real name is Beau.
Right.
My last name is a little bit more difficult for anyone to say on a regular basis, but it was always everyone always said, "Oh, Beau Douglas, Beau Douglas, whatever." So I just kind of stuck with it.
Yep.
Kind of stuck with it, and it worked, and it's still working. And
Right.
yeah.
And what was the hardest part of being trained by Killer Kowalski?
Yeah,
Being trained by Killer Kowalski. I mean, there you go. That living up to the standards.
Okay.
I mean, he's a WWE legend. He's responsible, in my opinion, for everything that goes on in New England.
Right.
He's responsible for what wrestling is now.
Oh, no doubt.
It's kind of controversial to say, but you got Triple H running WWE or NXT and everything. I mean, you got Matt Bloom running the Performance Center. The amount of Kowalski guys that are currently like working for the WWE.
Oh, yeah.
Past and present.
Yep.
Just living up to that standard.
Okay.
Living up to that standard. That was the toughest part.
Okay.
And still is to this day.
Right. Just before you're next, Dante, but one last question from Dan. How does it feel to be a New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer?
I mean, supposed to. No. It's actually awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. To be recognized by your peers,
Right.
and the whole community and the culture itself in New England. It feels good.
Nice. I was there.
It feels good. I know you were.
It was awesome.
Of course you were.
Dante, what have been some of your favorite matches that you've seen? Indies, mainstream, anything. This was from Dan also, just so you know.
Man, that's a good one. I have a few. I loved Triple H versus Cactus Jack. I think it was Falls Count. I think it was a hardcore match.
Yeah.
was all over the place. Right? Cactus Jack was handcuffed. That was a good one. Bret Hart versus Stone Cold.
Oh, right, Boston.
Yeah,
that was good.
that was a big one for me. Indy. The most memorable indie match I've ever experienced is Jason Rumble versus Mike McCarthy. It was a hardcore match. Must have been like 13 people in the crowd. But that's not how I remember it.
Right.
Like, I look at the pictures, I'm just like, yo, there was nobody there. But that match was imprinting.
Right.
It was such an amazing match. Like, it had me hooked. It had me go immediately up to both of them after. I'm like, dude, how you doing? I had to reintroduce myself, and I had already known them both.
Right.
Like, I wanted, like, I instantly became a fan of them each separately. You know, McCarthy with his heel, his bad guy persona, like, he represented a lot of, I guess, the feelings. Like, I guess I was feeling like I liked McCarthy, and then Rumble's energy was pretty good, but that match was pretty cool. That was like the match that really got me wanting to come back to more shows and see what else is happening that's not happening on TV or not happening on the mainstream, you know. And it's amazing to experience that, you know, because there's a lot of untold stories and a lot of underexposed stories too.
Right.
know?
Both those guys are awesome workers.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Got a couple WWE questions from my good friend of the show, Nathan Fuller. Do you guys think Kofi's going to turn heel? A lot of people are saying someone from the New Day they think is going to turn.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think anytime soon.
That would be.
I think got a lot of story to tell with
Right.
him
But
being.
what? That's the thing. We're talking about a heel. What's a heel?
Right.
What's a heel?
Well, nowadays the heels want to be
What's a heel? What's a babyface? What is that?
well, it's hard to now. It's like it's gone in a way.
Exactly. But is it?
No, not really. But the heels want to be. It seems want to be faces.
Hey, everyone's a good guy.
By
sometimes.
saying, you know, like the heel's supposed to say, you know, and like you guys know, stuff that doesn't make the fans cheer. Nowadays, it seems a lot of fans are saying, and the fans are loving it and stuff. That I don't know if it's actually they're looking for it or not. I think some guys might be. You know what I mean?
I think sometimes you can take certain ideas and certain concepts into the wrong audience and crowd, and that changes things and it varies.
Right.
You know, from show to show. You know, so it's just like, you know, that's why I feel like it's transforming as well. You know, the audience is gonna react to how they want to react. So
Right.
it's just like whatever you bring that night is, however it's gonna turn out. So and then that should average out into who you are to the audience.
Right.
You know.
Okay. Who do you guys think is the best wrestler ever to come out of New England? That's a tough question,
Yeah,
man,
it's
because
loaded.
there's so
It's
many.
loaded.
So you got to find best.
That's loaded.
It
Yeah.
is.
Global Impact, John Cena.
Yeah.
You can go to India, you can go to Japan, you can go to Africa, you can go to Antarctica, and I guarantee you know a penguin that knows
Yeah, probably.
or who knows who John Cena is. So Global Impact, John Cena. Triple H is hard to ignore. I mean, then you would have to say Walter Kowalski.
Right.
But Triple H is the future in terms of NXT, and if NXT is the future, I mean, almost everybody who has a belt right now came from NXT, so it's just like that's the future. Those are all seeds from Triple H's garden. So it's like Triple H has had as an impact that's hard to measure.
Yeah, and is it on the like the question?
The best wrestler? That's a good question.
You got. I mean, on the national level, on the WWE level, on the worldwide level. Like, I mean, there's so many different elements that go into that. There's so many people from New England right now that are some of the best. And they're there. They're at WWE right now. They've done Japan. I mean, you got Warbird Hansen. I mean, you got Dijak. You got Tommaso Ciampa. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, Fandango's even out of New England. I mean, so if you talk about Kofi, I mean, Winchester, 20 minutes from my house. You know what I mean? So it's like, when you talk about the best do we mean in that aspect? Do we mean technically sound? Because then, I
Right,
mean,
right.
you get people like R.J. Brewer, who never, I mean,
Yeah.
John Walters,
Yeah.
who never really went that direction, but he's one of the, I mean, in my opinion, he is one of the best technically sound wrestlers in the world.
Right. I agree.
But then you got people who also didn't make it to TV, who people don't know about, unfortunately. I mean, you got Mike Hollow. Mike Hollow did a lot of good things. You got Tim
Sure did.
McNeely from Kowalski's. Guys who just didn't make it to that level. I mean, you got Matt Bloom.
Yep.
We talked about him. They just didn't get that next level of exposure. I mean,
Right.
Slick Wagner Brown. I mean, I'm obviously going to mention him.
Right.
That's my brother. Just getting to a certain peak, even still going the way he's going. Eddie Edwards, I mean, one of the best in the world. Another one.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
there's
you
so
just
many
said
people.
too, like how some of them that did gorgeous Chris Duffy.
Yeah. Oh my
was
goodness.
unbelievable.
Amazing.
Brittany
Amazing. Brian Walsh, even.
Brown.
I mean, Tony Roy. I mean, I want to go back to the older Walter guys. I
Exactly.
mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, Demon Ortiz, even he had that beautiful moment at WrestleMania.
See, like listening to you guys talk, like, it really reminds me that I'm more of a Bell-Time student than anything.
Right.
You know, because Beau's been, Beau. I mean, Beau uses that phrase, Beau knows, and it's true. Like, I've learned a lot from Beau.
Try to.
So I'm, still learning a lot.
Right.
You just mentioned 50 names I don't know nothing about. But I think it's also a big part of my responsibility, in terms of what I do with my life, in terms of making films and working on documentaries and trying to package culture and preserve culture. So just hearing these names forces me to do homework. Like, I heard Walter Kowalski's name a bunch of times growing up. I didn't Google it until I met Beau. I didn't have to. I had to figure out who this guy was, and learn more about him. And then I realized how much impact he's had on, and how that's rippled out.
Yeah.
So
And I mean, it's all gone down. Even like right now, like that Brian Fury school.
Yeah.
It all started like with Walter, right? With Walter school into the chaotic school. And your school. I mean,
Chaotic was its own entity at one point,
Okay.
and Walter still had his school in Malden.
Okay.
And then, of course, as Kowalski's was closing, Chaotic gave him, I should say, actually, Mike Hollow and Jamie, they gave him that door to come over, and they let the school continue on.
Right.
And that was a great tool, and that was awesome that they did that for Walter, because it's always about giving back in wrestling.
Right.
And then to see Walter having the impact on newer people and a whole different crowd of people, that was also good too, and newer students to come through. And then, of course, after he passed, his name is still alive.
Right.
And his name will always be alive.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
synonymous with pro wrestling. But at least over at Fury School, they do have that attached. And that's huge. It's huge. And a lot of guys there did have the ability and the opportunity to work with Walter.
Right.
And then there's a lot of guys who didn't, but they were able to learn from the guys who did.
Right.
So if you talk New England wrestling, if you talk wrestling period, but if you talk New England wrestling, Walter he's the dad. He's the father.
At the top.
He is
He's at the top.
That's our dad.
Right. No doubt. But I mean, like you said, you're teaching, from
course.
like Walter's way.
Yep.
Slick,
Yep.
I'm sure, is doing the same thing. I mean, there's just so many great places to train.
I mean,
in New England.
Demon is over,
Yeah.
and him and
With
what is
the-
it, Stiff Mike?
Wrestling Revival.
Yep, War.
Yeah.
The
Wrestling
APW
Academy
school.
Revival.
I know Mike Hollow's doing classes there as well now.
Yep.
So,
And the last two people to headline Fenway was Walter and Bruno.
Wow.
yep.
So it was
1969.
and everything.
It's crazy,
Everything
right?
comes full circle. It's crazy. That
is
one of
crazy.
his students would come back and
Yeah,
crack
that's
open the
crazy.
door again. That's crazy.
Wow. I got one last question. Growing up, who were some of your favorite wrestlers? Now,
Bret the Hitman Hart.
I was gonna say you love the Hitman.
Bret the Hitman Hart, and I think there's a large gap between who I like number 1 and number 10. So I
Okay.
don't have nobody in slots from 2 to 9. Bret the Hitman Hart is my favorite wrestler of all time.
Nice.
And then behind him would probably be CM Punk.
Yep.
And Seth Rollins. That's his new age. I never thought I'd ever like anyone past Bret Hart.
Right.
And I love that short wave of Hart Foundation with Davey Boy and Pillman and
Oh yeah, that was a
Owen.
great group.
Like that group right there was what defined wrestling for me.
Right.
As a kid, I wasn't even Canadian, but I wanted a Canadian. I wanted a Canadian flag so bad, bro.
Right.
Like I wanted to have
I
one in
hear
my
ya.
room, and you know, I don't care what my mom said. I was like, I was gonna have a Canadian flag in my room because of Bret the Hitman Hart. I wanted the hair, I wanted the glasses, you know. So Bret was part of the reason I worked on my first video. Like as a kid, it was a slideshow. I went and I rented WrestleMania 12 because the first WrestleMania I had watched live was 13. We had seen it on the black box. My uncle had it. And he was just like, "You guys finally want to see wrestling?" And I was like, "Yeah." And it was it was that Stone Cold versus Bret Hart match. But I found the WrestleMania before. I found the Iron Man match, and I was so
Is
stoked
that the one
about
with
it.
Sean? Yeah, that match was good.
So I found that Mania and I put it in, and I was so excited to watch it. I have no idea who won it at this point, and we're already
Right.
going into WrestleMania 14. I was so excited to experience WrestleMania 12, and I'm like, did not blink the whole match. And then when Bret lost that match, it was the most heartbreaking thing in the world to me. It hurt me so bad. Like I looked at Bret lose his belt, and I was just like, I didn't care about Sean's celebration.
Yep.
I was so heartbroken. So what I did, I grabbed my wrestling toys, and I grabbed my camera. My AOL 2.0 was out. It was a PC, and it had a little software that came with a CD. A little camera that came with a CD, like a slideshow software. So I took pictures of the match. We had strings, and I just changed the match ending, and I had Bret Hart win at the end.
Right.
And then when I think about it, and I'm like, yo, that was editing. You know, I was making a video, and I was taking the story in my own hands, and I was retelling the story with Bret winning. So it was like I was really a diehard Bret Hart fan. So meeting him in person, it was kind of tough for me because I can compose myself around most people. Bret Hart, I was a little kid all over again.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Same thing happened to me with Jimmy Snuka. He was at a show in Nashville, and I'm with my son, who at the time was like 14. He's like, "Dad, he's right there. Go over there." I'm like, "What do you mean, no, Dad? We came here to see him."
You're
I'm
like, no, he's crazy. He's gonna
I
hit
can't
me.
go over there, And then Snooker standing around the tip. Come on, brother. Come on. Finally, I went over there, but I was shaking, man, because he was my idol.
Yeah.
So I know exactly what you're saying. How about you, Beau? Same question. Some of your favorites as a little kid.
I mean, I think that's why me and Dante get along, because Bret was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Actually, he was my favorite until as time went on. I still love Bret. I think Bret's amazing. Underrated? No, that's gone out the window. That's long gone. He did his job, and he did it well. But there was so many other people. I mean, you had British Bulldog at that point in time, and even prior to the Hart Foundation, I was a really big fan. Everyone thinks back to the Hogan era, and I mean, I was a Macho Man fan over Hogan then, and surprisingly, like you think he was just a little too cheesy for a city boy to actually like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But I did like Hogan. I mean, and I look back on it now, and I'm like, okay, he was one of the greatest, even though
he put so many eyes on wrestling.
He did.
He really did.
And exactly, as a city boy. Not really. Right. He was just a little too much, a little too cartoony at that point.
Yeah. The only time I ever rooted for Hogan is when my kids were little.
Of course. And I did just because I did.
Inside, I wanted him to lose.
Of course. And then
I wish I would have experienced Hogan earlier.
Back then, because it was a different element of
I was introduced to Hogan as Hollywood Hogan.
Yeah.
First time I see him on TV. Like after watching the tapes, I would be like, "What's next?" I see Nitro and I see Hollywood Hogan. I'm just like, "That's Hogan right now," and I'm just like, "That's the Hogan I know."
Yeah,
I had to go back and see him in red and yellow.
Yeah, he brought it to the mainstream.
Absolutely.
We give it to Hogan for that, and that's the reason I would say for that. But there was people there even back then. I mean, Ricky Steamboat. You had Tito Santana, Rick Martel. Yeah. They were all really, really good, and you just didn't get to see it because they weren't that. Right. And that's fine. Right. But then when I started liking, work rate, when I started watching wrestling for different aspects and not just for being the super entertained, just watching, your whole perception changes, obviously. Right. Who your favorites are become someone completely different.
Oh, absolutely.
But you can still keep Brett in there. I mean, his work rate was fine. But yeah, no. Pillman was amazing.
Sure was.
Yeah, he was
Underdog.
captivating,
I
man.
liked Stunning Steve even
Yep.
before he was. I mean, if you say WCW, I have to click in. Obviously, Ric Flair,
Yeah.
Arn Anderson.
Barry Windham.
Oh,
There's
so
just so
many.
many back then, right?
So many people, and it's to say favorite. I just loved wrestling.
Right, me too.
I just
I was
loved
die
wrestling.
hard.
There was, I mean,
Every match I would
probably could
always
name
have a
3
favorite.
guys that like I've loved. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I loved everybody else too. You
I
know,
mean-
like you said, Macho Man. I loved Jerry Lawler, and I didn't get to see him as a kid. I only saw him in magazines, and I
Yeah.
loved him.
And that's the thing. I'm talking about a lot of these good guys and people
Right.
that everyone loved. And then you had Adam Bomb come out on TV. Not the best in the world, but amazing to watch as a kid and to see him with that tan. I really believed he was from 3 Mile
And
Island.
those goggles.
No, and he was so
Yeah.
intense, and
Yeah.
everything he did was intense. So, you know, and that's when I started liking bad guys a little
Right.
bit more too. And I'm like, okay, I like this. And it's just everything. If all the pieces are together and it is something that just catches your eye,
Right.
I'll be honest, I consider that my favorite.
Yeah.
Anyone.
Well, it's funny how Dante, how you brought up, you saw Hollywood Hogan. I just actually watched an interview on YouTube the other day with Kevin Sullivan, and he said the night before that Nitro, and he wouldn't let Hogan leave his house because he was afraid someone was gonna change his mind because Hogan didn't want to turn.
Oh.
It was all Kevin Sullivan.
Wow.
Smart man.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
there's
like-
another. Talk about
Another
greats in New
Boston
England.
guy,
I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
Kevin
I
Sullivan.
didn't
He's
know
got to
that.
be one of the first ones, but you know,
Pretty dope.
Yeah. Well, one of them.
one of them. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
he
I'm
was
saying
up
one of
there.
them.
Yeah, he was up there.
Guys, we got about 6 minutes. Want to play the name game?
Oh, I'm down.
All right.
Me.
Alex Price. I like that kid, man. He's here next week.
Stupid talented.
What's that? Super talented?
Stupid talented.
All right.
I was going to agree with both parts of that. No, I love Alex.
Super and stupid talented.
I love that kid. He's again. We
young.
mentioned him before. He's just young, and that's it. And honestly, with more size, more experience, the sky's the limit.
I
Man.
was just going to say,
Sky's
honestly,
the limit for him.
I feel the same way. I really do. I feel the same way. How about Benny Jukes?
Another brother of mine.
Genius.
Underrated, man. Honestly, I hear people talk about, how great guys are around here. He's as good as anyone. And that's
Fact.
seriously, he really is.
100%.
Yep.
100%.
How about Slick Wagner Brown?
Again, that's
I know
unfair.
he's your brother,
I was
so
like, that's unfair.
Well respected.
nice.
That was obvious to me about him. That
Right.
he was respected, from locker room to locker room. So that was my first and only impression of him.
Nice. Let's go. Rich Palladino.
Amazing. Best ring announcer ever. Should have been gone a long time ago.
Yeah.
Should have been signed to one of the big two back then. And even with ECW,
Yeah, because he was doing the New England
he
shows.
really gave a really strong voice to
Yeah.
New England wrestling. Obviously, there's many more now, but
Right.
he did it.
Nice. Yeah, he is killing. And seeing we brought up Rich, but last time I saw you was at the Chaotic Countdown, and you had said you had never been to a Chaotic show.
Yeah, it was my first time.
What did you take from that event?
It was a great experience. It was a great production from beginning to end. I had all kinds of notes. Man, I loved the music.
Right.
The music made you feel like you was there. I loved the setup. It was a great experience. I mean, and every match felt like a main event match for the most part.
Right.
I loved the energy, man. I have never been to a Chaotic show, but I've heard that name from the moment I stepped foot into a wrestling, indie show.
Right.
The first time I ever walked into an indie show, I heard the name Chaotic Wrestling, Chaotic. So I just had it in my head, and I knew I had to do homework once I heard it at every show.
Right.
So it's just like I couldn't ignore it. Then I realized how big of a piece to the puzzle they are to the area in terms of defining the local culture.
Right.
So I knew that if I go, I gotta go with love. I gotta go with respect. Like I had to go as a fan too. Like I went there to see good stories and good matches, and I had a good time.
It was a great show.
Yeah.
You were there for the very first match too?
I was there from the beginning to the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I want to bring up this guy right now, Christian Casanova.
I love Christian. I love
Incredible
Christian.
talent.
And the thing is, last time I seen him, he was still Michael Jackson.
Yep.
So I haven't seen him develop into what he became now until now.
Right.
And he's captivating.
Yeah.
That guy is captivating.
The new chaotic champ too.
You know, so I know I'm gonna end up dropping a bag of money on his lap at some point.
Right.
And getting him involved. And I gotta get him a bag, you know what I mean? Because he's a good dude and he's great at what he does, you know.
He's finally,
He knows him way better.
Right.
he's finally getting, I think, the notoriety he deserves.
Yes.
You know, and just, I think it's just a matter of timing.
Right.
I think when he first broke in and started, there was a plethora of highly talented individuals coming out of Chaotic.
Yep.
So where he wasn't traveling as much, maybe he was overshadowed a bit.
Yeah.
But I think now everyone's seeing what a lot of people already saw. I used him on all those old school shows I used to have, the Belltime Club show, the VCW shows at Belltime Club.
Right.
And he was on 2 out of 3 of the Fenways that we've done. And I don't expect to see him around here much longer. Let's just say that.
I feel the same way about Anthony Green.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? He's
Oh, my God.
not going to be around here much longer.
Yeah,
what about his Christian's manager, tag team partner, Triplicious?
I love Trip. I've known Trip.
So did the moonsault, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I hit him up the moment I saw him do a moonsault.
Yeah.
Because I saw him get to the top rope. I'm like, bro, he ain't gonna do it.
Right.
And he did a moonsault from the top rope outside. I'm like, oh my God. Like, it was so cool.
Another underrated guy. though.
Super underrated. One
you
of the
know?
most athletically underrated people I know.
Absolutely.
Trip, I've known Trip for years. He's also been part of one of the Fenway experiences. And
I hit him up that same night. I mean, I was
Nice.
just like, yo, who's the dude that did the backflip off the top rope? I just want to say what up. I didn't get a chance to meet him.
I
wanted
think
to
what
meet him.
Trip is, he finally found himself.
Right. Right.
And I think that's why now he's so comfortable.
Yep.
That he found himself.
Right.
And I think because he found himself and he is comfortable, that others are finally finding him as well.
Right. Nice. Why don't you plug your 2 things coming up this week one more time before we get off the
I'm going to be at Lace Boston tomorrow, 4 to 6. I'm going to be at the Lena Park from 7 to 10. And Wednesday we'll be at the Belltime Club. You called it Malden Irish American, but when we're there, we call it the Belltime Club.
tonight.
Nah, it's all good. We take over the venue. We're going to call it the Belltime Club. And other than that, you can find us on YouTube. Just YouTube Belltime Club.
Nice. I got to ask you real quick. You got a kid over there training, Gabriel Danger?
Gabriel.
How's he doing?
Amazing.
His father's a really nice guy.
Great guy.
Nice.
Great guy.
Guys, listen, we'll have you on again.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Dante.
Yo, thank you.
Man, thanks, guys. Guys, we're out. Peace.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.